So, Juliet, you cast three of Annette's first five films, Postcards from the Edge, Regarding Henry, and The Grifters. How did Annette get on your radar, and what was the response from the directors like Stephen Frears and Mike Nichols when you brought her to their attention?
Well, I remember meeting you when you graduated from ACT, and then I saw Coastal Disturbances, and it was interesting. Actually, I
Amazing.
remember in the meeting you were rather serious, probably like in a state of paralysis about your first interviews in New York and stuff, and then going to see Coastal Disturbances, and you were so hilarious, so funny.
So good.
And same
So
in
good.
Spoils of War too. And I was casting Dangerous Liaison at the time, and Stephen Frears was the director, and I had Annette in for the role that Michelle Pfeiffer eventually played. And then Stephen wanted Annette to play a smaller role of a prostitute, but it was being shot in Europe, and the company wouldn't pay for her to go over. But anyway, so then she went off and did Valmont, which was also based on Les Liaisons Dangereuses. And then when the next year, it was all so tight, such a tight period of time. The next year, Stephen was doing The Grifters, and I said, well, what about Annette Bening? She'd be so great. And she sort of reminds me so much of Gloria Graham. And do you remember that at all?
Yeah,
right.
I do.
And so that was that.
And Annette, do you remember the first time you went in for Juliet, whether it was for Mike Nichols or Stephen? What was that like?
I do remember. It was before that because I had just come to New York. I had just graduated from ACT, as Juliet mentioned, which was my acting conservatory. And I really, I had been in the regional theater, and I was 28, or at that point I was like 25. So I'd auditioned before, but I'd never been to New York. And I was very nervous, and we had a showcase presentation because all the acting schools in the country would come to a theater and you do your scenes, and then the theater would be filled with casting directors and agents. And so I was going out and meeting people for the very first time. So Juliet, I don't know if...
I probably came to that. That was what I couldn't remember.
Well, no, actually what happened was what I heard through the grapevine was that you were interested in seeing me. So that alone...
Because of the leagues.
I guess so.
Yeah, the league presentation.
And
that we all
so
go to.
the agents became more interested in meeting with me just because Juliet had expressed interest in me.
Yeah.
So that's basically why I'm here.
That's how it always happens.
Is to say thank you to Juliet because you were so kind.
And Annette, what was it like meeting Mike Nichols on those movies with Juliet? Do you remember that?
Well, I think what I really want to say is that as you can see from seeing Juliet, and I'm sure most of you here know her or know of her work, what you see is this kindness and this considerate person. Norman said sensitivity when he was talking about Lynn. This incredible humility. And when you're an actor, and especially when you're first starting out, it's very hard to feel a sense of your own dignity because you walk into the room and of course there are other people that look like you and you're constantly auditioning and putting yourself out there, and it's very hard to feel your own confidence. And you meet many casting directors, sadly, who aren't very respectful. And so that's reinforced your own insecurity. So when I met Juliet, she treated me with such kindness and consideration, and I thought, I thought the people at the top would be the rudest. And I thought, I see. So the people that are the best have the most grace and the most empathy. And that's what makes them great. But I didn't know that then.